Gardens by the Bay, a stunning fusion of glass, metal, and greenery, brings nature to the heart of Singapore. Join Renjie and me as we immerse ourselves in its forest bathing experience and also enjoy a meal at Marguerite restaurant. So RJ, the last time we spoke about Singapore's green plan, and I asked you about the Gardens by the Bay, and you had one word to describe it, that the Gardens by the Bay are a mirage of sorts, right? So let's just dig deep on this very thing.
So in my mind, a mirage is something that kind of appears out of nothing in a very unlikely, fantastical vision, right? And to me, that's what the Gardens by the Bay are, because they, first of all, are in the middle of the sea. They're in the middle of the Marina Bay, right where the South China Sea is, and they're a set of gardens that kind of rise out of the middle of water in the Marina Bay, which is itself a huge body of water in the middle of the city center in Singapore, all right? The real downtown core of Singapore. And so to me, why that's so fantastical is because it's such an unlikely combination of things. Because also, not only is it a garden rising out of the sea, it's not a normal garden. There's a lot of greenery, there's like trees and so on, but it's a garden of glass and steel and metal that lights up and shimmers at night. So in my mind, it's kind of like a mirage.
So I remember you telling me that you never get to see the gardens fully.
Yes.
Because you see all the domes, you see everything. But what do you mean by that? Because whenever I go there, I'll go to the flower dome.
Correct.
I will go to the other dome.
Cloud forest.
Yeah, the cloud forest, right? And
then you see the super trees.
Exactly.
Maybe stay for the night show.
So, but what do you mean when you say that you don't really see it fully?
So, I always tell people that I think unless you work at Gardens by the Bay, whatever you know of Gardens by the Bay, whatever impression you have of Gardens by the Bay in your mind, in reality, it's about like 10x of that, right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, Gardens by the Bay, as we know it, is only one tiny fraction of what is a development. It's a whole natural development as part of our sort of urban city plan that spans multiple areas. And what's wonderful about Gardens by the Bay is, again, when you think about what you know as Gardens by the Bay, around the corner from that, there's always going to be a small garden or a small themed kind of area that's, you've never encountered before. But there's just wonderful greenery in the middle of the city center. Right?
Okay.
And so we're talking about like Zen gardens, for example. We're talking about like, a garden themed according to the wetlands, right? And you have all these little pockets that, are at the end of the day, very deeply local places, because it's only really Singaporeans who live in Singapore that end up discovering all these other parts of Gardens by the Bay, which I always think is just such a shame. It's such a hidden secret, I guess.
Yeah, I guess many of our listeners and viewers will probably be happy that we mentioned these, because just running to the cloud forest or the flower dome and getting out of there is not going to solve it. But what are some other experiences that you've had at the garden?
So as a visitor, one, I think, very easy way to experience this other parts to the garden is from forest bathing experiences that you can sign up for. So forest bathing is this Japanese concept where you're essentially immersing yourself. There's no like bathing suit involved, but you're immersing yourself in nature as a way to kind of step back from the sort of rhythm of urban life and to reset. Right. And there's a wonderful company in Singapore that runs these experiences. It's called SU, Nature Connections. And they essentially run these wellness experiences that you can do. You get up really early in the morning. It starts at 7:30, I think, just to kind of beat the heat. And you meet in the Zen garden, which is again tucked away in one corner of Gardens by the Bay. And the guide brings you through a series of exercises, activities. Most of them are alone. There's a little bit of sharing involved. But it's all centered on the nature that's around you as a way to kind of mindfully reflect on what you have around you as an experience. And it's a wonderful, encounter, because at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, there's nobody else around. You're surrounded by greenery, beautiful landscaping, and you're in complete silence, listening out, for instance, to the bird that's kind of plodding along. It's a wetland bird because there are wetland reserves there. You're listening to the very low sort of hum of grass cutters, like someone mowing the lawn, and then smelling that wave of fresh green cut grass. And it all ends off with a tea ceremony, which I love. It's hard to beat having a tea ceremony.
Tea ceremonies are just so, Asian, I would say, because India has them, Japan has them, Singapore has them as well. That's pretty cool. Now, that's a great way to start your day. But I know the Gardens by the Bay also has a restaurant. And it's a very unique one. So tell us about that.
Yes. So have you eaten at anywhere in Gardens by the Bay? Okay.
Nope, not at all.
And I feel like most people kind of go to Gardens by the Bay on a mission. They're there to see the cloud forest. They're there to see the night show, for instance. But one thing that I think is wonderful is right in the middle of the dome, you have a restaurant that kind of reflects its surroundings. And what I mean by that is it's a restaurant called Marguerite, and it's run by this wonderful chef. And essentially, the cuisine is built for the weather that you're eating it in, and it's built for the kind of environment of being in a garden. And so what they do is gastro-botanical cuisine. It's not particularly cuisine agnostic, but use wonderful ingredients, fresh, seasonal produce, in very sort of light courses, and you can go there for both lunch and dinner. But I just think it's such a transformative experience of being able to see Gardens by the Bay, go walk around and see the light show and everything like that, but also, in a sense, experience Gardens by the Bay's philosophy through the medium of food. Right? So you're sitting in there, the gardens are literally right there, it's open, it's within the dome, and you're just kind of immersed by that soft smell of flowers all around you, of Mediterranean herbs, and having that on the plate as well, I think is just a wonderful experience.
That's quite awesome. Another thing that meanders very close to the Gardens by the Bay is a street race track.
Yes.
And Singapore, more or less, is a fast city.
Yes.
But there's one weekend in the year, around September every year.
When it goes faster.
When it goes faster.
Yeah.
And that's when the Singapore Grand Prix, Formula One, comes to Singapore. So we spoke about the Gardens by the Bay, but on the next episode, I want us to dive deep into F1.
Yeah.
And why Singapore comes alive, and what's in it for someone who's watching this, and what they would really like to, what they could really see when they go on Singapore Grand Prix weekend. So let's do that on the next episode.
We'll have to find our racing outfits on for the next episode.
Oh, yeah, for sure.